and good morning once again. I love our theme for the month, The Wizard Within. And it's a curious thing about life is many of us do look outside of ourselves. And as we look outside ourselves, we are looking for the answers. And what we know in our way of life, and this is why I love our way of life, is that the answer is within each and every one of us. And there are times that we forget that. And so we're all on the yellow brick road. The yellow brick road, symbolically, is the archetype of the spiritual path. And that as we are learning and growing and unfolding and expanding and allowing ourselves to unfold, we're going to have our human experiences. And as our humanness gives way to the divine, the Christ consciousness will arise triumphant and victorious. The Buddha nature, the I am presence. What we believe in our way of life is that we are all one. And in this oneness do we live and move and have our being. And that we make certain adjustments. And on the yellow brick road, there are forks in the road. And we hear voices. You know, we can turn this way or that way. And isn't it fascinating how people, places, and things come into our lives when we are ready for that? Just as the scarecrow hanging up on his pole asked Dorothy to assist him. And he, although felt that he didn't have a brain because his self-image was not up there where he felt worthy. So he is giving her direction on how to get him off the pole, you know, to lift the nail. But what we know is that within us, there is a spirit, mind, and body connection. And that if we are created in the image and likeness of God, and in this case, Oz, because they were all looking for the Wizard of Oz rather than Oz. Symbolically and archetypically, God within. And when we go within to that secret place of the Most High, and we pray to our Father, Mother, God in secret, we are acknowledged openly by the outward demonstrations of our lives. So we do gather people, places, and things that will assist us on our journey on the yellow brick road, on the spiritual path that we are called upon. And when Dorothy looked at the Good Witch of the North Glenda and said, oh, well, you know, how do I get home to Kansas? How do I get home? I know I can't go back the way I came, right? In that great cyclone that twisted and turned the house, which is so symbolic, that it just lifted her off the energy field. It was like a launching pad that lifted her off the way that it was. Dorothy was turning 12, which is symbolically related to adulthood, that she's now going into a different phase of her spiritual consciousness. And as the house turned and twisted, you know, there's a house, but there's also a home within the house that we carry with us. And the fact that it landed on the Wicked Witch of the West and the Good Witch of the North, is Glenda asking Dorothy, are you a good witch or a bad witch? And she said, no, I'm Dorothy, I'm a girl. We know who we are. And when we acknowledge who we are, the world around us will acknowledge that as well. So when she meets the scarecrow, who is just a very loving presence in her life, and he says, do you think the wizard could give me a brain? And she said, well, nothing ventured, nothing lost. I mean, you know, you know better off than you were. And so they start down the yellow brick road singing, we're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And as they go, what do they find? They find another companion. And he is very, very encrusted. And he's very encrusted in his belief system. Each of us have that tin man within us. We need the oil of gladness to loosen our joints, to allow us to see life in a more expansive way, even in times of pandemics, in times of dis-ease, in times of upsets, in times that are in upheaval. Even in those times, and I will say, and especially those times, because there is a place within us that has never been touched by grief. It has never given offense, and it has never taken offense. It is the place of peace, the peace that passes all understanding within us. So they oil the Tin Man. The Tin Man wants a heart so desperately, and yet he is so compassionate, he is so loving, but feels that this is going to give him something he doesn't have. He doesn't know he already has it by virtue of the fact that he is compassionate and caring of Dorothy's plight. And so he joins the little band. And they're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And as they're moseying on down the yellow brick road, they hear, the forest, and they hear the sounds in the forest, and Dorothy feels a little bit frightened, and she says, I don't like this forest one bit. And the Scarecrow says, I think it's going to get darker before it gets light. This is the one that didn't think he had a brain. And so they venture into the forest, right? And what I love about Frank Baum and the Wizard of Oz and his own wonderful thrust in acknowledging these characters, and that they come upon a tree and they start picking apples off a tree, and the tree says, what are you doing? I didn't give you permission. What are you doing picking apples off of me? And they go, oh, well, we're so sorry. In the Native American tradition, they do not pick a plant or sage or do anything without asking permission. I love this ritual. They ask permission of the energy that they are approaching. It's a sacredness. And through this sacred way, what happens? Even the plant kingdom responds. But they just went unconsciously picking apples off the tree. And so then the Scarecrow, he doesn't feel he has a brain, uses a little reverse psychology and says, well, we didn't want your all apples anyway. They're probably full of worms. And what happens is the tree starts throwing apples at them. So there are their apples. This Scarecrow who felt he didn't have a brain because he felt unworthy and unacknowledged. That Scarecrow within us that doesn't feel worthy or acknowledged and felt that he couldn't scare anyone. Well, it wasn't within him. It was not within his psyche to scare anyone because he was loving and compassionate and caring and joining Dorothy on her quest, because it is a spiritual quest. We're off to the Emerald City. And remember that green is within the heart chakra. A chakra means a wheel of spinning energy in a clockwise fashion. We have 7 major chakras within this body temple. The heart is green. And beneath the green is the pink of compassion and forgiveness. So the heart is about healing. The heart is about abundance. It's about compassion. And it's about forgiveness. And so when they're off to the Emerald City, and they know that, the Wizard of Oz is going to do it for them, not realizing that there is a wizard within. And as they're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, they, go into the forest. And Dorothy said, I hope there aren't wild animals in the forest. They said, well, we think there's bears and lions, and, they come up with all these things for the imagination to get really scared. Scared, right? And they come upon the lion, the bully. And he's, insulting Scarecrow. He's insulting the Tin Man. He's running after Toto. He's going to get this little shrimp. And suddenly Dorothy, what does she do? Now remember, in the archetypes, the first 4 archetypes are the innocent, where life is wonderful and beautiful and we love it. That's that innocent part of us. That's our wonder child. Then we get disillusioned, we go into the orphan, where we don't feel acknowledged, we feel abandoned, we feel all the human emotions, so we go into the orphan stage. And from the orphan stage, we go into caregiving. You remember, Dorothy was very compassionate with the plight of the Scarecrow and the plight of the Tin Man, and said, come with me, let's go and see the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And so, interestingly enough about Dorothy, when she slapped, she just came and gave him a little slap on the nose, the lion, what did he do? He started crying, didn't he? And he said, you didn't have to do that. Oh, you didn't have to do that. And he starts crying. She goes, what? You're just a big coward. He goes, I am the cowardly lion. I try to make up for it by acting fierce, but I'm not. And so he said, I need courage. So what happens? Dorothy invites him and their little band off to the Emerald City to visit the Wizard of Oz, who's going to give them all these things. Dorothy wants to go home to Kansas. The Scarecrow wants a brain. The Tin Man feels he needs a heart, even though he's full of compassion. And the Cowardly Lion needs courage, because he's even afraid of his own shadow, he told Dorothy. So off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. And what is so interesting about this? About Dorothy in her ruby slippers, and the good witch of the North, Glinda, saying, keep them on your feet. Their magic must be very powerful for the wicked witch to want them so badly. Keep them on your feet. Remember, our feet represent our understanding. The Bible states, with all you're getting, get understanding, for there's a spirit within each of us. And that spirit with each of us can be tapped into and expanded upon, and we live out of that spirit. And we knew this when we first came into the planet, and we forgot, and we're in a process of remembering. So sometimes we have to get on that yellow brick road, and we're on our way to the Emerald City to visit this great guru called the Wizard of Oz, because he's got all the answers. I love Russell Conwell from 1832. He was like the very first motivational speaker. He wrote a little story called Acres of Diamonds, and it was taking place in Iraq. And Ali Hafid was a very rich man, and he was very contented. And the old priest came to visit him and acknowledge how contented he was and how wealthy he was. And he was wealthy because he was contented, and he was contented because he was wealthy. And then the old priest said, have you ever seen a diamond? Now for me, you know, a diamond is just a piece of coal that made good under pressure, right? Each of us is that diamond. We make good under pressure. But he told him about the diamonds and how he could bring him even more riches, and how beautiful they were. And so Ali Hafid went to bed that night a poor man. He was poor because he felt he didn't have enough. He was not contented. When we are not contented, we are poor. Blessed are the poor in spirit, right? For they shall see God the moment of their enlightenment. And that moment of enlightenment is the recognition, I know I have a choice. I have a choice. So Ali Hafid sold his farm. He went to Palestine. He went to Europe. He went to great and foreign lands looking for diamonds. And all his wealth was spent. His health was spent. And he ended up casting himself into the sea. Meanwhile, the man that purchased his farm, was farming, and the old priest came to visit. And he looked on his mantle and he saw all these amazing, beautiful stones that were diamonds. And the old priest said, has Ali Hafid returned? He said, no. He said, where did you find these? He said, well, there's a stream that goes through the backyard. And I was down there one day and I noticed something glistening. And I lifted it up and there were several there. This happened to be one of the largest mines in the Far East in his own backyard. He didn't have to sell the farm. Ali didn't have to go to Palestine. He didn't have to go to the far lands of Europe. The diamond mine was in his own backyard. We don't have to go any further than our own consciousness. And when we go within to our own consciousness and we heal our own issues, and we allow the archetype of the caregiver to come in, because we go from the innocent, all is wonderful, to the orphan, ain't it awful, to the caregiver, where we begin to take care of ourselves, do what we need to do for ourselves and our own spiritual unfoldment. And then the warrior. The fourth major archetype. The warrior energy gets us out of bed in the morning. The warrior energy gets us to look at our tasks and to complete them. Oh yes, complete them. That warrior energy gets us to where we need to go. And I know that some of our viewing audience is in rehab right now. God bless you. God bless you, because that caregiver within you said, this is enough. I need to take care of this body temple. And goes into that warrior energy, signs yourself up to go into rehab and to do what you need to do for your own consciousness and your own unfoldment. Out of my weakness, the Apostle Paul said, I find my perfect strength. Out of my weakness, I find my perfect strength. Out of feeling that I have no courage, I find my perfect courage. Out of that realization that, oh my gosh, I wish I had a heart, we go within and we find the heart of the matter. Oh, I wish I had intelligence. I wish I had a brain. And yet, the moment we go within, the right and left hemispheres of the brain unite, and there is an energy that unfolds within each and every one of us, because those archetypes are within us. And the feelings of, I gotta get home. But the diamond is within us. The acres of diamonds. We don't have to go to exotic lands and worship gurus. I mean, and I've been all over the world, and I have gone to special temples in India and been blessed, and it's been wonderful. But there's a difference between giving our power away to someone standing behind the curtain calling the shots that's quite finite, right? We don't give our power away to any outer thing. The wizard is within us, within each and every one of us. And as we realize that, everything opens up. There's a beautiful Chinese statement. It's like a parable. It says, when there is light in the eyes, there is beauty in the person. When there is beauty in the person, there is light in the soul. When there is light in the soul, there is harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. When there is order in the nation, there is peace in the world. But what does it start out with? Light in the eyes. And when there is light in the eyes, there is beauty in the soul. And when there is beauty in the soul, there is harmony in the home. When there is harmony in the home, there is order in the nation. And when there is order in the nation, there is peace in the world. The peace that passes all understanding. We're all on the yellow brick road. And we're all in at very interesting times, and that cyclone has landed our house on unfamiliar terrain. But we're going to open the door, and there's going to be beauty and light, color and warmth, because we're all going somewhere. Do you know where that is? Higher yet. Where is it? Higher yet. Where? Higher yet. Because we are in a high place, and we will not come down. None of these outer things move us. We are in a high place, and we will not come down. I say to you, namaste. The God in me salutes the God in you, and the God in you salutes the God in me. And if I am in that place in me, and you are in that place in you, there is only one of us. Namaste. I say shalom, the peace that passes all understanding. And God bless us, everyone. And so it is. Thank you so much. And